Martinez cocktail is a classic from the 19th century and one of my favorite stirred cocktails. Here I'm going to be teaching you my preferred recipe for this drink. To make this cocktail, you'll need some Old Tom gin, some sweet vermouth, I like Carpano Antica, some maraschino liqueur, some Angostura bitters, some orange bitters, and we're going to stir this up in a mixing glass, serve it in a Nick and Nora, and then garnish with a lemon. There are some variations to the recipe, but the version I prefer is on the drier side. So we're going to start with 1 ounce of sweet vermouth, 2 ounces of your gin. The original recipe calls for an Old Tom gin, which on a sweetness level sits somewhere in between a London Dry and a Genever. I really like this Ransom Old Tom gin, which is aged in French oak barrels. Then we're going to add 1 bar spoon of maraschino liqueur, which is a relatively dry liqueur made from marasca cherries. Then give it a generous dash of Angostura bitters. And then finally a dash of orange bitters. Then add your ice and stir for about 45 seconds. While that's stirring, let's talk a bit about the history of the Martinez. If you were to do some research on the history, you'd be disappointed to find that there's not a clear answer about the original definition of this drink, as well as the proper ratio of vermouth to gin. There's also a lot of overlap between this drink and the original martini drink, which likely used sweet vermouth back in the day. So when it comes to making this cocktail, use the ratio that you prefer. The 19th century recipe for this drink ranged from a very sweet 2 parts vermouth to 1 part gin ratio to a even 1-to-1 ratio. I prefer the more modern, drier version of 2 parts gin to 1 part vermouth, but it all comes down to your preference. Here we're serving the cocktail up in a chilled Nick and Nora glass, although you can also use a coupe glass if you like. Finally, take a lemon peel, express the oils over the top of the drink, wipe the edges, and then drop it inside the cocktail. And that's the classic Martinez cocktail, one of my favorite stirred drinks. Cheers. To get this recipe, links to the equipment I used, and early access to videos, visit cocktailchemistrylab.com.